everybody. Welcome to Learning House. Thanks for being here today. My name is Michelle. So today we're focusing on SAT skills. There are different question types that you need to study and learn so you can do well. These are some of the questions that you could see. What can be inferred? What is suggested? So before we go on, you have to know the difference between these two words. What's the meaning of explicit and what does implicit mean? Explicit means it's there, it's obvious, it's in your face, it's clear, there's no confusion, no doubt of what it could mean. Implicit means implied. So it's not clearly stated, it's a suggestion. So we have this phrase, sometimes you have to read in between the lines. That's implicit. Read in between the lines. This is not your opinion. You are drawing a conclusion based on what has been presented, based on facts. So in the SAT, when you read a passage and they're asking you, what does the author imply? You are reading, looking at the facts, and then coming up with the assumption. When you have an inference question, these are the steps, and this will set you up for success. We're also going to walk through an example together so you can put this in practice. Number one, when you're doing anything on the SAT, put it in your own words. You do this because the SAT test makers are trying to trick you. And when you put questions and summaries in your own words, you have a better understanding of what's being presented. The next thing is when you're answering inference questions, it's helpful to be on the lookout for anything that could be a relationship. If there are opposites, if something is more than another, less than another, you're looking for those things. The other pointer that I like to give students is become the spy. Look at it like a game. Here's a puzzle and you're trying to figure out where is this assumption. And then when you're answering questions, before you're looking at the answers, you're coming up with your answer. So you're reading the question, you're answering the question for yourself, and then you're looking at the answer choices so you don't get tricked. The test makers are trying to trick you. So they'll use a combination of words and phrases that they'll think that you might pick. If you have put the answer in your own words, you'll have an easier time understanding meaning and not getting fooled. The number one thing that you have to look for when answering inference questions is what is true. So it might not be directly stated, it might not be word for word, but you have to think based on this passage, what is true? So the answer will be there. And this is what's tricky and very hard for learners who are not native English speakers, is because you're already translating, you're thinking about meanings, and then you have to think about the sub-meaning, the thing underneath, right? So looking at what is implied, what's not explicit. Understand what the question is really asking. And on the SAT, again, they're trying to trick you. So sometimes they phrase a question very strangely and you're thinking, wait, what are they actually asking? You have to think, wait, what is this really actually wanting to know? The other way that SAT test makers try to trick you is using these line numbers, right? So lines 18 to 28, because a lot of students think that that's the only place they should look. And yes, that's a great starting point, but if you're only looking at lines 18 to 28, you could miss valuable information in line 16, in line 32. That is key to helping you mark the right answer. So remember that, yes, you can use that as a compass to try to help you find the information you're looking for, but don't get fooled by that, okay? And then finally, I'm gonna say this again and again and again and again, paraphrase, right? There's only one right answer, and you're only going to find that when you use your own language. Understand what the passage is presenting and what the question is asking. Yes, we're talking about inference questions, but there's different ways of presenting these inference questions and detailed questions. The first one is, I'm going to categorize this as narrow. And these question types are referring to something very specific in the passage. And these are some of the prompts that you might see. So in lines that the author implies, or the author strongly suggests, it can be reasonably inferred. So here we're looking at how is the author presenting details. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one is broad. So here we're looking at the passage as a whole, or what the author thinks about something. So instead of looking at a detail, a line, a sentence, an example, we're looking at the passage in its entirety. The passage indicates that, or it can be inferred from the passage. We're taking a step back. It's like, I don't know if we have any movie buffs in here, but using a wide angle lens so you can see the full thing that's in front of you. The next question type, these are analogies. So using one thing to draw a conclusion or comparison with something else. The situation described in line X can be compared to. So it's not the same, but there's a relationship there that you have to understand, that you have to figure out, so that way you can answer the question. So again, always going back to what's the connection, what's the relationship, and putting it into your own words so you can mark the right answer choice. These question types I really like because you have to think, who is this author and what do they think? How do they view the world? Sometimes you have to put on different lenses. I say, like, you're putting on rose-colored glasses, blue-colored glasses, orange-colored glasses. The social psychologist mentioned in paragraph 2 would likely describe this phenomenon as. So you're thinking, if I was the social psychologist, how would I say this? It can be inferred that the authors of passage 1 believe that running a household and raising children. So now we're thinking, we're putting our mind, we're putting our perspective into the people who wrote passage 1. However you want to think about it, putting on different glasses, becoming an actor and taking on a different persona, but you're thinking of how do those people consider the world? All right, so let's put this into practice. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Remember your strategies that we reviewed. The question will always give you an idea where to look, and you can use that as your starting point, but be sure to address the other considerations, right? If it's a broad question, you'll need to think about the passage as a whole. If it's a detail, be very minded about that detail presented. What is the relationship between ideas? Can you describe that yourself in your own words? And then finally, when you're looking at the choices, which choice most closely matches what you have thought? Let's get started. Here's an example. And this is taken from an SAT prep. So this is like a real question that you could see. What reaction does Akira most fear from Chie? So we know two things. We have two characters. One person is afraid that somebody is going to act in a certain way, and there's a reaction. So we have to figure out what might that be. Don't look at the answer choices, only think about this. And notice I've already put in my own words, what is this question asking? So reaction is like a response, an emotion. Akira is afraid of something happening from this Chie character, and we have to figure out what is that thing. Remember, when you look at a question, put it in your own words first before you're going to the passage. So when we're looking at the passage, now we're looking for proof points. We're looking for facts that can show us the relationship between those characters and give us some sort of hint of what is this Akira scared of? What is scary and why? That is what we're focusing on. Instead of us reading the full thing, here are some of the phrases that would be most important. Madame, said Akira, forgive my disruption, but I come with a matter of urgency. So already we see something. This person is apologetic. His voice was soft, refined. He straightened and stole a deferential peek at her face. Deferential means, think of like when you're namaskaring somebody who's older than you, it's kind of deferential. In the dim light, his eyes shone with sincerity. So sincerity means truth. We know this guy isn't trying to trick anybody. Chie felt herself starting to like him. Come inside, get out of this nasty night. Surely your business can wait for a moment or two. I don't want to trouble you. Normally, I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as a dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. So we see some key words here that can help us figure out, what is this person afraid of? What's going on? This guy is a little bit apologetic. I don't want to disturb. I'm sorry. Hello. I don't want to trouble you. And then is giving some news. All right, moving on for the rest of the passage. Akira blushed. Depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. I've come to ask for Naomi's hand. Suddenly, Chi felt the dampness of the night. Does Naomi know anything of your ambitions? We have an understanding. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. I asked directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. Either method comes down to the same thing, a matter of parental approval. If you give your consent, I become Naomi's Yoshi, and you see this asterisk and you look below, it says a man who marries a woman of higher status and takes her family name will live in the house of Fuji without your consent. I must go to America to secure a new home for my bride. Eager to make his point, he'd been looking her full in the face. Abruptly, his voice turned gentle. I see I've startled you. My humble apologies. I'll take no more of your evening. My address is on the card. If you don't wish to contact me, I'll reapproach you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, good night. He bowed and left, taking her ease with effortless grace, like a cat making off with a fish. So we can see more about this Akira character. What is he doing? He's basically asking for a proposal. It's an engagement. We know that he's asking for somebody who is of higher status than he is. So there's a little bit of apprehension there of, is this his place? Is this the right thing to do? And when you're reading, especially these kinds of passages that include characters, and the SAT is notorious for this. When there's characters, there's motion, there's a lot of action going on. Think of it like a movie. Play it out in your head like a music video or a movie. And that can help you identify, how are people responding? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? How are they going about their business? And that can help you answer the question. Okay, so we know Akira is afraid of not just one thing, but a few things. One, he doesn't want to interrupt, right? Because he's apologizing. Forgive my disruption. Two, he doesn't want to cause trouble because of the way he's going about this. And again, you always want to find proof in the passage of your ideas, your assumptions. And so in this line, 39 to 40, he says, I don't want to trouble you. Normally, I would approach you more properly. And then finally, what is he afraid of? That he could be rejected because of the way that he's going about this. And again, we find proof. Don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this approval. So these could all be potential answers, but going back to the question, it's what he most fears. What is he afraid of the most? If we only had to choose one thing, what's the most scary? So here we have some choices, and now we're going to think about, all right, what could he be scared of? The answer choice, she will consider his proposal inappropriate. Okay, that is something that he's worried about. Yes, we know this. She will mistake his earnestness for immaturity. We don't really see proof that he's worried about his immaturity. We see more that he's worried about the status symbol. She will consider his unscheduled visit an imposition. He's saying this from the get-go. Sorry that I'm here. I'm not going about this the right way, this kind of thing, right? And then the last one, she will underestimate the sincerity of his emotions. Do we see that at all? Is he ever saying like, oh, maybe you don't believe me or I'm lying? No, not really. If anything, there was a word saying that he is very sincere and trustworthy. So we know D, we take out. By process of elimination, we're crossing off answers that we know can't be correct. We have A and C left, that either the proposal is inappropriate or the unscheduled visit is an imposition. It's taking a step back, a wide camera angle lens. Why is he going there? It's the proposal. And the first thing that he says is, forgive me, but it's urgent. That's not the only detail that we get, that he's worried about his imposition. Is this unseemly? Is this okay? This kind of thing, right? So A is the right choice here. When you're answering these kinds of questions, it does take a little bit of time and a little bit of work, but remember that look for the facts in the passage that can support your answer and then move on from there. I know that we're moving very fast. I have one more question that I want to go through with you. We're going fast. Interestingly, the ways that languages categorize color vary widely. Non-industrialized cultures typically have far fewer words for colors than industrialized cultures. So while English has 11 words that everyone knows, the Papua New Guinea language, Burinmo only has 5, and the Bolivian Amazonian language, Tzame, has only 3 words that everyone knows, corresponding to black, white, and red. Text is pretty straightforward, but you do need to know the definitions of some words. What is an industrialized and a non-industrialized country? You have to know this to be able to work through this problem. The next thing is a little bit of an assumption, but that English is spoken mostly in industrialized countries. And then you have to know that Papua New Guinea and Amazonia and Bolivia are not industrialized. Based on the information in the passage, it is reasonable to infer that in comparison to languages in non-industrialized cultures, languages, industrialized cultures, and now we have to answer. So going back to the presentation that I went through very quickly, what is the relationship? So what is the relationship being presented? What do you know? So break it down. How are languages in industrialized cultures different from those in non-industrialized cultures? We know that they have fewer words for colors. Now flip it. Industrialized cultures have more words for colors than non-industrialized cultures. This question type is easier to answer because we are just looking for the relationship, and then we can choose the right answer. Quick review, remember, restate what the passage says, put the question in your own words, look for concepts with relationships, and then see if you can spot assumptions. So that's what I have for you today. This is advanced. I'm a native English speaker and I had to study for the SAT. It's not easy and it takes time. Online, what's great is you can find so many free resources. Keep in mind, when you're preparing for the SAT, you have to be self-disciplined and you have to set a schedule for yourself so you remain focused on your goals. So one of the first tasks that we give to our students is to set a study calendar. Think about when you want to take the test and plan backwards. I usually recommend 3 months to prepare, but that could be different depending on your ability and the subjects that you've studied and what kind of student you are. Before you start, take a practice test, because you can use that as your baseline. After you study for 2-3 months, you take another practice test and you compare your results, right? This is like a science experiment. So your pre-test and your post-test. Compare and see where are your weaknesses and how are you improving? Where are you bombing? Where are you doing great? And use practice tests as an assessment to measure how you're doing. If you're studying alone and you're not seeing improvement, I would definitely recommend getting into a class and working with a teacher. A teacher is like a personal trainer who can help you find your flaws and fix your mistakes, inform, and can help you stay motivated and on track. If you've missed any of the past webinars, how to write a cover letter, how to apply to school, how to choose a school, other skills to help you with SAT, IELTS, you can find recap videos on YouTube. So hopefully that's helpful. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to send the Learning House page a message. Thanks so much for being here. Stay positive, stay active, do set goals for yourself every day. If I can help, if our Learning House team can help, just send us a note. So thank you so much for being here, for joining today. That was quick. Hopefully you got something out of it. Bye-bye.